And so I don't know why we're not a part of this, and how, let me put it this way, where would we insert ourselves? Because we need to insert ourselves in this discussion from the get-go. Our department too is, we have 5-unit classes, and we can't teach them in 5 weeks, it's impossible. So somehow we have to figure out when this discussion gets started,
right,
and then make sure that we are there and represented for these discussions. Because this is a huge pedagogical implication. Yeah.
Brenda.
Thank you. So for clarification, only the fall and the spring schedule are negotiated items. The summer schedule and intersession are not negotiated, and the chancellor has so much as said this. The direction that the Senate can take, which I'm doing something right now, if it is the sense of the Senate to direct the college president that there should be shared governance, that is an action the Senate can take.
Well,
just to kind of repeat some of the things Brenda said, you know, I try to look at things in a macro level process about how decisions are made, and also in this case, you know, also on a personal level, and just kind of give an idea. And I think this is similar with SEM too. Is I've had for many years an 8-week summer class, and that's not really common in social science. A lot of people prefer 5-week classes, and they get 5-week classes. But a couple of us, a few of us, have had 8-week classes, and it just works pedagogically for certain courses. And in my case, it's not as much of a complaint as coming from SEM, but it is about the process, because my course was a 3-week course, and I think the other courses that for some people who have had it for 8 weeks has also been 3 units in our social science division. But my main concern is when I did try to open up a dialogue and try to ask, you know, what was the reason? It wasn't very clear. And when I asked the sort of second time, it was talked about maybe kind of vaguely, it was cost. And then when I heard that there was actually, you know, a great amount of dissent, and, you know, I just kind of passed along, okay, that's how it is. It's just, you know, this is a decision, and maybe there's some big expense sort of saved in terms of electricity or whatever. But then when I found out actually that this is really something affecting science, engineering, math, and I've kind of gotten recollection, and I started making some inquiries, I started realizing, well, there's exceptions being made, and there's some classes that are actually ongoing, and some classes aren't, and it just didn't seem like the decision-making apparatus was very clear. And so when I sent an inquiry again, I was basically told, well, you know, we've already went through this, basically, the decision's already been made. And I just find it kind of peculiar, like, you know, I serve, you know, and I attend UF meetings, you know, I serve and attend Senate meetings, try to get the kind of pulse of what's going on and how decisions are making, and for me, it's completely, you know, obscure. Sometimes it just seems like, okay, here's a decision, here it is. And what I would want to say, and just kind of repeat what Brenda mentioned, is that even if there is something that currently is not a negotiable item for UF, there are things that the Senate can do, and we can pass resolutions, we can send inquiries, and we can ask that we be included in these kind of decisions that affect our classes. And so, that's what I like to say.
thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this issue? We'll debate it next meeting. Moving on then, Lori.
So, in a sort of a nutshell on this, the 16-week calendar, we're not asking to change the 16 weeks. We're only asking to adjust the start date so that our students can have a weekend to study for their final. So instead of beginning class on Monday, which I know feels normal, you know, for everyone, and ending on a Thursday, what we're asking is, why can't we start class on Wednesday, and that way we would end on a Tuesday, so that the kids could take their finals on Monday and Tuesday after having a weekend to study. It is really impactful for us in SEM, and I'm sure others. I mean, I just know my people, you know, as we talk about it. And so much so that I have been volunteering, like I just have been making my own finals week. And I come in and work for free, and I give my finals on Monday and Tuesday after everyone else is already gone, because my students simply need the time to study. And I make it optional, and I had like 60% of my students signed up to come take their finals. This is just anecdotal evidence, it's certainly nothing that we can make far-reaching generalizations from, but, you know, my students benefited from having a weekend to study, and as long as we don't get hung up on, we have to start on a Monday just because Monday's the first day of the work week, I mean, there's really no reason to do it that way. So we feel very strongly about it, that if we could just adjust it, and then of course, you know, opening day could be on a Tuesday, I suppose, and then we start on Wednesday.
And next meeting will also be a chance to debate and or amend this. One thing you might want to consider, Lori, is specifically the starting it on a Monday. Maybe leave that for the calendar to figure out what the start day is, and just say that we're gonna end on Tuesday.
Okay.
Because of holidays and stuff, if you say we start on a Monday, we might not end on a Tuesday.
Wednesday, if we
Or
start on
Wednesday, yeah,
Wednesday.
because of the,
Well, it seems like we start on a Monday now and we end on a Thursday now. So if we just move 2 business days, we would start on a Wednesday and end on a Tuesday, but whatever, point taken.
good.
I feel I have to say
Jim.
something, even though we're waiting for debate.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I absolutely understand what you're saying. That proposal is extremely detrimental to my vision. It takes away instruction days. Those 2 days after the last weekend are useless to us because our calendar, our finals, our productions are based on weekend productions. You're not giving us another week. You're giving us a half a week, which will be useless to us. And then we're going to lose those 2 days in the first week. And those are rehearsal instruction days. So the problem is the difference in how we can't change those Friday performances. That's when people come to the theater, that's when they pay to come to the theater, and that's the theater is calendarized through the whole campus. So we can't adjust that. So starting later in that week is taking 2 days out of our week.
We're gonna have some good discussions in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I am not a senator, so
You can speak.
I come from health science, if you don't know, and clinical facilities are a prime problem for us. And each class has a day of the week that they go out and do their clinicals. And the problem with extending it past into an oddball half a week would be that another school gets my slot as soon as I'm gone. So for the nursing program, you're putting me in a position where I'm gonna have to make I'm gonna have to make some deal with a hospital to have them work a midnight shift or go on a weekend to end on time. So please do not do this, and if you do, we'll be very upset.
We're gonna have a good debate in 2 weeks. Brenda.
The calendar is negotiated every year, and when the calendar is negotiated, it takes into account faculty needs across the district. So, for SEF, did you talk with Fullerton College to see how they're handling the switch to the 16-week?
We haven't had a specific meeting with them.
Because that would be one thing that would come up. I mean, if the Senate directs UF to negotiate this, that would be something we need to see how Fullerton would react to that. So you might want to.
Yeah. Well, we thought the starting place was our own. If we can't get it to fly here, why are we gonna involve another school? But
at least to get information.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a parallel
Right.
seeking of information, I understand.
Okay.
Will.
Yeah, I just want to express, you know, I always try to look for some compromise in some places where we can meet. There are some places, it's a challenge, it's a big, difficult thing, but I feel at least somewhat responsible. I mean, as a Senate, you know, we approved the 6-week calendar in many ways. You know, I would express my solidarity with SEM, if anything, because they were the ones that really had the biggest sort of challenge and also opposition in some cases in some departments for the 16-week calendar. And so we want to see like how to accommodate that. And I think what Renda says is one thing, you know, I mean, there are, you know, certain, either a Senate committee or a science, you know, committee of faculty to try to look at some solutions, and I know they've been looking at and having discussions. One thing that seems clear in some of the rules and parameters for this issue is that if you look at Fullerton, we would, for sure, I'm hearing this from UF, but we'd certainly hear this from the district, that they would want us to be on the same calendar. either way. So whichever way, you know, Fullerton goes, we go, or vice versa. And we would, if we were gonna change any part of the calendar, it would be the same calendar. There are some places where there are some differences though. Fullerton, for instance, does have a cosmetology program that does start on a different day. That might accommodate some of the career tech fields and other things. I'm not so sure that that's gonna accommodate a difference, let's say, with fine arts and science, engineering, math, because I don't know if there's any precedence for those divisions.
We do that on this campus, Will.
Yeah, and we do, yeah. I mean, there's-
Geography's a good example.
Oh, yeah, for the late start too, yeah. So there is some precedent for there to be all different kind of schedules for different disciplines, but, there can be confusion for students at the same time that we want to prevent. So all these issues are out there, and in some ways, you know, I would be more than helpful, I mean, if we don't get a resolution, or if there is, the momentum isn't there, I think as a Senate or as faculty, we do need to continue to pursue this to try to find something, if there has been a good solution by other colleges, or if there's a way to accommodate to make sure, because there are growing pains with the 16-week calendar, I think we're still filling that, so.
Thank you. Robert?
We currently pay up to 15 extra work days for the coaches of our teams in January, because the NCAA requires them to start in mid-January, and of course we're starting on February 1.
Thank you. Tina?
I just wanted to reiterate what Darlene said over there. I mean, I'm in health science also, psychiatric technology. We go to the mental hospital Mondays and Tuesdays. Everyone else has those days in the health science area. Those hospitals, those facilities are all full. And if you lose your position, you don't get a facility. That means your program. So I understand, because they moved my 4-day class from the first week after the vacation to the 23rd of January. So I understand how this summer schedule is a nightmare for many people, but there is a huge area, like in all of our career technical education, where we do have to have other people involved, and they have a lot of say-so.
Thank you. Lauren?
And I hear what everyone is saying, and those are important issues. We don't do this lightly. This would actually be very inconvenient for us as well. Like labs would have to be set up and then reset up again because of, you know, the Monday lab is now behind the Wednesday lab, you know, that kind of thing. So this is not something we undertook lightly. But I would say the issues that I'm hearing somehow were all able to be addressed when the calendar went from 18 weeks to 16 weeks. Somehow everyone was able to lose 2 weeks and be okay with all of these issues that you're talking
We're
about.
not okay.
Nobody's
Not okay.
Yeah,
And you,
for-
that's
for-
like 2 more days.
Hold on. Let's not interrupt.
And so
I'll call on you if you want.
it's, you know, for us, you know, as everyone knows, we didn't want this shortened week. Our students are not exceptionally gifted in science, engineering, and math for the most part. Having them have less time has been horrifically challenging for us. Horrifically, underlined 57 times. And they're not having a weekend, just a weekend, forget a whole week of finals. They're not having a weekend to study for their finals is cruel. It is cruel to our students. And it is not fair to expect them to absorb this kind of material without having time to study. So whether it's this, I'm very open, and as we are in the division, we want a solution that will work. If it's different start days, I think we can figure it out, just like we have late start classes and 8-week classes, and this class begins then. We got online classes that meet only 1 day a week. There's all these various things going on. The kids figure out somehow to get to their jobs on time, which starts different times every week. I just think they can handle that. What I want to give them is a fair chance to be successful in these challenging classes. That is our motivation.
I like you, Karen. Jim, did you have something you wanted to say?
I did, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be adversarial. I absolutely agree that you should have those days. There just has got to be a way that she can have 2 days, and 2 days don't come out of another department, because we're not okay. Taking a week out of our production schedule is killing the students, it's really killing the staff, because teaching these shows in 6 weeks as of 7 or 7.5 is, we've asked a lot. And if I have to come back to my faculty and go, now you have 2 less days, they're going to, kill me.
Well, what we're doing is we're debating the topic that literally should be debated in our second reading. What I'd like us to do, unless it's really pressing, is to move on.
Can I apologize to you first? I really did not mean to argue about your need. I recognize it. The problem is that if we switch to that, then I'm in trouble. Not that I don't.
I like your apology, let's save the rest for 2 weeks. Is it quick?
Yes, something to just think about, and this may be heresy, but is it possible, listening to all sides, is it possible to do a 16.5 week? We don't have to debate it, I just, maybe something for next time, that's all.
Okay. Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Lori, for bringing these forward. I like that. We are now moving to Academic Senate Constitution amendments. Before we start, let me remind that the chair will very much entertain motions to limit time. Christy.
We're going to start with Brian in the introduction and taking it into the clarification of duties. And then it will come back to me, and then Wayne will have something, and come back to Brian. That's basically the game.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Okay, part of this is clarification of what was taking place. We have, and I would say despite what's been presented, I think it's fairly clear that going back into last semester that we've been pretty open about what we've been doing. We were authorized. The first was we talked about doing it. The committee authorized those people. We took it. People decided to volunteer. Some didn't, and we have pretty much been holding meetings at least sometimes twice, sometimes two or three times a week. And we have worked. The document that you are getting right now is the 28th version of the document. Because what has happened is every time people have said something, we've taken those things into consideration and we've adjusted them. Things have moved around. Used to be a 6-unit teaching requirement, now it's 3 because we were getting the feedback of people. We were doing a lot of that stuff back and forth, deciding that we were going to take it on a rather slow course. Because what had been suggested here to the committee, and the committee responded to the wishes of the Senate, was to break the debate down into some way. Was to do it so that we can take them on different issues and be able to not have to have a free-for-all, to be able to do it in some kind of organized way, and we talked about all of that. And as I have told various different people who have sent things to me, ultimately, after this comes from the committee, it is now the document of the Senate, and the Senate can do different things to it. We have told people that in emails, and we've expressed that. The cart has been put before the horse in terms of the criticism of what's been taking place here. There's been ample opportunity for us to discuss things, and today we're going to continue those discussions. We're going to talk about the amendments that we haven't talked about yet. We're going to have some sort of final thoughts about things, some final discussions about stuff. People will be able to raise issues of those things. We do hope that we will bring this to a vote today. That's been what we've been doing all along with this. Nothing's been a big surprise, okay? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about those things that we have yet to discuss, the things that we agreed that we were going to break down and talk about today. They deal with the sort of the clarification of the duties, really what we would call institutionalizing the changes that we've already begun to do in here. And I'd like to take us back before September. I'd like to take us back to the old Senate, because what I think is important is we need to understand where we were, we need to understand where we are now, and we need to understand where we want to be. When I first sat down in the Senate with having no orientation, having no handbook, having nobody tell you anything about what was supposed to be done in this Senate, what the rules were, what my obligations were. I had some things from previous people who were on this Senate, but no real instruction. There was no culture in this Senate that had anything about wanting to teach people what the roles and rules were, so that when you sat down, everything, you were going on an equal basis, that the debates that we had, the discussions that we had, would be determined by the merits of our arguments and not whether you knew the rules. And that simply wasn't the case. And I was told famously, trust the person or read the book, which is not a very collegial position to put anybody into. Trust me or read the book. Now, I'm a particular type of fool that in that choice, I read the book. I read the book, and then what I found out is the choice I was given is actually trust me. Because when I read the book, we weren't following it. What we were doing, actually, if you remember, was taking the lowest form of authority we could in our parliamentary authority, custom. We were taking the C- passing level, and we thought that that was okay, that that was the standard that we would have, that it was unwritten custom. So reading this book meant nothing because the custom was in people's heads. The frustration of that for me almost made me leave. And I understand that there's probably some people who kind of wish I had. But I wanted to leave, and I'll tell you what I did. I had conversations with people, not on the committee, some of you here, and I'm not going to rat you out, about reform, the need for sustained reform. People have talked about how there needed to be change. They've mentioned it before, but nothing ever come of it. We need sustained change. We are getting a sustained movement for that change. What we have done in the past year has been pretty exemplary, I think. Where we started from with nothing, and that is also a failure of our previous Senate culture, creating no system with which to base any kind of orientation or anything on. We had nothing to build from but ground zero. And we have begun to build a better decision-making process. There are more people here who know what's going on than have ever known before in the Senate, because there is a culture now which is embracing teaching that to people, which is telling you that when you sit down here, you need to know the rules, because the merits of your arguments and not whether you know the rules are going to dictate what takes place in this body. We have done a great job of changing that. And what we're talking about today with these clarification of duties and things is the institutionalization of that. So we don't go back to that time. We don't go back to a period where the Senate was dominated by a lack of transparency, dominated by one particular group, screwing with the potential voice that we have on a lot of different issues, okay? Supported by bad, not real elections of at-large, a system that needs to change. And we are institutionalizing that change. We're going to create a handbook that every Senate has. We may have had it, but no one gave it to me. And it's one thing to give you a book, it's another to go over that book. So we want to have a seminar so that we create the culture, that everybody is invested in this, that everybody knows those rules. We're talking about the 10+1 in here, strengthening references to 10+1, because that's what we do. And I think it's interesting, and it was alarming to me in our last session that there was sort of joking about what is the benefit of being on this Senate. Is it really an honor? Yes, folks, it is. We vote in here every day that we're in here. Something pops up in your syllabus because of something we did in here. This is a huge privilege to be here. And we need to spread that message to people, institutionalizing what they're supposed to do here. We're talking about in these clarifications, we're talking about alternates, because we still have that issue. What is an alternate? What is a proxy? We've had proxy votes taken in this place. Controversial proxy votes. We need to make sure they don't happen. We have this alternate that isn't. We need to clarify that. And what these things do is clarify those positions. Further things that talk about what our roles are supposed to be, that we are supposed to go to our constituents, that we actually have one. And it's important for us to talk to our divisions. It's important to inform them about what's going on here. All of those things are designed to institutionalize the great changes that we've done. You really do need to be congratulated, Gary, from where we were to where we are. That's not lip service, that's you have grown as a president and this Senate has grown. And it's been a really positive thing. I've liked it. Has it been difficult? Yeah, but that's because we had nowhere to start with. We're building something here that we're going to give to future Senates. What Senate do you want to give to those people? Look at your pie charts that we gave you last time. The reforms that we're talking about create a very nice representation of this Senate. A very nice one where there's no big gaps in representation, where the faculty voice is is supported. We just had a situation where the Vice President of Instruction said, pedagogical issues don't matter in creating how long a course takes. Pedagogical issues. How you teach a course in 5 weeks, being given to us by someone who is the Vice President of Instruction who does not teach, who never has. That's the culture we have here, that we're allowing that. And I understand people say there's only 3 folks. Okay, we're not saying they can't be those 3 folks, but what we're saying is there is something that we have given up in this Senate. And on this campus, it is the protection that we get from our governance. We are faculty and we teach. Ask yourself where you're at. You're at Cypress. You're not at Scripps. You're not at Stanford. Every single person here is hired to teach. We need to protect that because we get stuff like SLOs thrown at us when we don't protect that. We get stuff like teach your class in 5 weeks when we don't have instructors being able to give that position. We are in a better position today to handle those sorts of things. And think about the future, folks. Accreditation is here. They're already talking about it. We better do some things because the sword of Damocles is coming over our head again. Remember what happened last time? We didn't ask questions. We got SLOs rammed down our throats. We're ramping up this next accreditation process, and we better make sure that we take control of that faculty voice. None of the stuff that we are presenting to you today are at all radical. They institutionalize what we've been doing. You go back to the previous stuff, it is a suite of well-integrated reforms that are going to take us to a situation where we have a spread out, participatory faculty senate that people are vested in. Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to respond to Brian's opening? Kathy?
I would like to ask if this time we could do, instead of pros and cons, since we have not had any motions and didn't have any motions before, could we just talk? Because it's very hard, if you don't have a motion, it's hard to know if you're pro or con, if you still have questions, if there's still discussion. So I'm just asking, from here on, can we just talk? With the caveat, I know that we had said before, what is slowing us down is everybody says, well, I agree with so-and-so, and this, if there's something, could we just do, for example, if there's something new to add to the discussion?
How about, I like the idea of pros and cons, just want to be so it doesn't become lopsided, okay? At the same time, I will go out of my way to ask for something new so we don't become so redundant. How's that?
Are we talking about again?
I just don't quite understand why we can't just talk.
Well, I think we can. My fear is though that.
Because there's no motions. Can I make a motion to suspend the rules? No, I'm sorry, I make a motion to suspend the rules.
To do what?
To allow us to just, but I don't think there are any rules that say we can't discuss this.
You can direct me.
Pardon me?
You can direct me.
I'm sorry. I'd like to just make a motion that we be able to just discuss the issues.
Is there a second? Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? I will do away with pros and cons until otherwise directed.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to respond to Brian's opening?
Well, I'm after, if we're discussing the clarifications of duties, is that what we're?
Well, I mean, he had, but yeah, well, we are, but he had such an extensive opening to that, there might be somebody that, I want to make sure people had an opportunity.
And I apologize for that. I did go a
No,
little bit off
you have nothing to apologize for.
only because of
You have nothing to apologize for. I'm just saying that I want to
responding.
make sure that people have a chance to stay within context. Okay?
I do have something.
Point of information.
What's that? Yes, sir.
Can I ask what the goal of what's gonna happen next is? Is there a motion that we're gonna adopt the constitutional reforms? Is that the goal?
That's what I heard Brian say, yes.
There will be, as we have a discussion, and all motions are on the table at that point.
Would it not be better to make that motion so that we know what we're actually
Well,
gonna
here's,
vote on?
if I may, can I?
Yes.
Part of the reason, we were sort of, Kathy, I mean, trying to do somewhat of an informal breakdown of this because of the size of it. We didn't want to have unwielding conversations, so that's why we've organized it in this way. And in keeping with that tradition, the idea is we have some more things to talk about, and if we don't, there's going to be a motion to vote on this Constitution as it's been presented. Now, that's going to be the result of a discussion that I believe we're about to have. And the ultimate goal into this is, yes, is to make a motion to vote to send this to the faculty. Remember, that's ultimately what will happen. We will be sending this to the faculty if we vote yes on it. It's not about we make it true or whatever. It's about going out. And I'm attempting to honor sort of the informal discussions that we've been having with that. That's the only reason why I'm doing it. I mean, there's other parts of the presentation that we have as well, but we are discussing this. The committee has brought this to the Senate, and it is the Senate's document right now.
Kristen?
Kelly?
It's to your opening, and I think one thing I'd like to point out is while perhaps the issues of clarifying the duties and reforming the process may not be as controversial, I think you would agree, or the senator would agree, or however I address it, that the previous issues that were discussed, for example, the redefinition of faculty or the elimination of at-large or term limits, that those were more controversial issues. And they were limited at certain points along the meetings to 15-minute, chunks with the pro and the con, and little 5-minute extensions and whatnot. So I think that while, I just want to clarify because what is being presented today in terms of clarifying, it may not be as controversial perhaps as other things, but I don't know that those other issues were fully fleshed out to a full extent to the satisfaction of the Senate. I'm just not sure about that.
And
I'm gonna call Wayne next. Thank you, Kevin. Wayne?
Well, my sense is, and I've listened from the beginning comment, is can't we just have a discussion about this? And then I also heard over here, if there were a motion so that we could open it up. There has been a lot of discussion, and I've only been to 3 meetings on these changes. And I think whatever is going to get a clear appreciation of what these proposed changes are and what the procedure is, if it is voted from here to the faculty at large, as I understand it from a reading, it takes only 1/3 of this body to let the entire faculty vote on these constitutional changes. And so my suggestion, I'm not making a motion because I'm not, but my suggestion would be that if the committee chair would make a motion, it then gives an opportunity for us to answer questions, have a dialogue, and it doesn't have to be this pro and con thing, because I think that there is information that still needs to be out here. So.
Thank you, Wayne. Brian?
Didn't we go through a vote to suspend to have sort of an informal thing, so there wasn't a motion? I mean, that's kind of why we're doing this, so that's why there's not a motion on the floor now. It's sort of in keeping with what we've been doing. But Kathy, I think your point is a good one. But let me explain the breakdown and the timeline. The least controversial things were today, so we were talking about more controversial things. But I really don't anticipate that there's anybody here who has any disagreement with anything that's done here. On the clarification of duties. I can't say anybody's like, no, there's no way we should have it, right? So the point was to go over those for the sake of just to go over them some more and make the last point. But it was last time where we had a discussion about a lot of these things, and we could have extended those discussions more. We did extend some of them. Motions and all sorts of things could have been made when we were discussing those things. So yeah, absolutely they could have been. All you have to do is get recognized and make a motion. All of these things have been before you for the past 3 sessions. You go back now and you talk to other people, and really it's the senators. If somebody doesn't like the way that this is and they're not a senator, they will have a chance to vote on this if it gets to them. And we can try to create the best document that we want, getting all those people. That's what we've done with 28 revisions. And at some point, yes, we're going to say, here this is. And the senators will vote to see whether the faculty get to vote on this. And as Wayne pointed out, it's a third. But we've been trying to not have this as formalized. And you guys have all been really big supporters of that process until opening comments today.
Christie.
Okay. I would like to read a statement that I've prepared. And I feel like I have not had a lot of time to express myself in this, even though I've put so much of myself into this. And so this is going to be a speech of a little duration, so please bear with me. I've been a full-time faculty member here for 14 years, and last year was the first time that I served on Senate. One of the first things that I did as a senator, with the help of Fumio Agashi and the biology department, was to create our Academic Senate website. At that point, we were one of only 3 community college academic senates in the state that didn't have easily accessible Senate information. Before our website was created, Senate information was only available to faculty through the J Drive on our campus computers. Nothing was publicly available about our Senate or about our processes. Creating the website was motivated by the very real need for our college to progress and for our Senate to have a transparent process. Am I saying that no one else wanted positive change or a transparent process? Of course not. But someone has to be willing to step up to the plate and initiate change. I don't think anyone was fearful of having a website, but it was a jump from the past into the present, which could be daunting. People tend to get comfortable, and change requires a new way of thinking about things. It isn't always easy. Working on the constitutional amendments has required an enormous amount of personal time for all of us in this committee, and the process has been nothing less than diligent, conscientious, and professional. For 6 months, this committee has been inspired and guided by the trust and responsibility that was conferred by the Senate body. Not only does this committee represent different divisions, it represents a strong cross-section of campus experiences and perspectives. We have spent over 60 hours in meetings as a committee, made 28 draft revisions, and individually devoted countless other hours to this endeavor by talking to our fellow faculty members, gathering feedback, and doing our own research. I personally have looked at almost every community college Senate website in the state in order to see the different constitution and bylaws. We have carefully and thoughtfully examined the ways that our needs and responsibilities as faculty on our campus have transformed in the last decade. Since last semester, the senators have had time to consider the proposed amendments, and particularly in the last 6 weeks, we have had multiple discussions and ample opportunity to share with our division faculty members. Sometimes organizational structures cease to provide the best benefits for the people involved. The pie charts clearly tell us that this is what happened. We do not benefit from a system that supports any one single division having almost half of the faculty voice for over 12 years. Our Senate structure cannot stay locked in the past. It must be capable of evolving. Specifically, the committee has had one focus. How can our Senate improve and strengthen the faculty voice in our campus and district governance processes as we move into the future and as we cope with constantly evolving technology, a rapidly changing student population, more complex curriculum standards, budget constraints, and ever-moving accreditation requirements? The proposed amendments are an integrated package designed to create a new culture of involvement. They will work together to spread representation and encourage greater ownership of the faculty voice in many ways. People can easily get comfortable with other people doing the work. That is a very real part of our Senate history. This is a problem. If we look at the pie charts again, we see that our current Senate structure is not representative because of a lack of sufficient involvement from many of the divisions. Yes, the Senate has put out calls for volunteers to serve in the at-large positions, but has this worked for us? That's the real question. We should not be afraid to look at the past 12 years. In fact, our current Senate structure is an anomaly. It's not common because it supports apathy rather than involvement. That's why the proposed divisional representation is the most widely used model in all of the California community colleges. With this integrated package of proposed amendments, we don't have to guess or hope that we will get enough people across campus to volunteer. The divisions themselves will be responsible for placing representatives on the Senate. The divisions themselves will create expectations that faculty will share the professional responsibility of participating in our governance process. Finding enough people will no longer be the Senate's job. Faculty will feel more immediate encouragement to serve, and because of an ongoing election cycle for almost all of the divisions across campus, there will always be opportunities for people to serve, thereby creating a new culture of involvement. As part of the integrated package of proposed amendments, the term limits aren't limitations. Taking 1 year off out of every 6 is a recognition of the need to periodically step back from the Senate and possibly serve on another campus governance committee. Faculty who have served on Senate for 6 years straight, or 10 years straight in the case of one serving as president, should step aside for at least a year and give another faculty member the privilege of voting for the faculty voice. And anyone could serve on Senate again for another 6 years straight after that 1 year off. The amendment even provides an escape clause for divisions that cannot find anyone to serve, which is exactly the same term limit expectation and escape clause for department coordinators in our UF contract. In fact, the reason for department coordinator term limits is to encourage responsibility and involvement. In addition, a bare minimum teaching requirement is not strange when we consider that the primary responsibility of the Senate is to safeguard what happens with our curriculum and our classes. It is the classroom experience that provides the most necessary level of expertise for senators. And this is a well-vetted amendment, and the feedback to the committee has been overwhelmingly supportive. It's important to see that these proposed amendments work as a cohesive structure. They support the ability of faculty members to make choices at various points in their professional lives. They support and encourage faculty to invest themselves in the Senate process. But most importantly, they move us away from a static system that shoulders the decision-making responsibility on a small number of people, the same people year after year. That's not really fair. It's not fair to the people. It's not fair to our system. We will now have the expectation of investment from a broader range of faculty across campus. Clearly, the long-term benefits will be a faculty body that is more directly connected to the governance process and more aware of the responsibilities and opportunities that belong to all of us. It is true that some people in this room will be affected immediately by the proposed amendments. As a matter of fact, I could be one of those people. Although I've invested an enormous amount of personal time in this committee, in the Senate website, the Senate handbook, and the committee's handbook, I have no guarantee that my division will re-elect me as a senator. This is a very real possibility I might not be voted back in. So I have nothing personal to gain. But if I were afraid of that, I never would have initiated this process in the first place. We serve as representatives for the faculty. Why would we not have the courage and the recognition that these proposed amendments should be brought forward to a full faculty vote? This appointed committee has been deeply conscientious and diligent in its responsibility to reevaluate our structure in order to facilitate a more broad-based faculty voice, and therefore a stronger faculty voice. Specifically, through these proposed amendments, our Senate will gain greater representation for adjunct faculty, greater faculty investment through divisional representation, a voting position for the curriculum chair, a proper representation for the library LRC, and better clarification of the roles and responsibilities of all senators, including the executive board. The document you now have is the result of hard work, careful research, thoughtful deliberation, and passionate debate.
Since last fall, the senators have had ample time to discuss, analyze, gather feedback, and provide input. It's now time for the faculty body to decide. We should be proud that as a Senate, we are proposing an evolved constitution based on our present-day needs and on our responsibility to strengthen and serve the faculty voice well into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Who would like to speak next? Sarah.
I'm not well, so bear with me. I know.
Aren't you ladies glad you're sitting next to her?
It goes on.
Teresa, when it comes to over here.
I'm being careful. I think the goal that we all, a common goal, is that we want this to be passed, because a lot of time has been spent by committee, a lot of time has been spent by these meetings. So I think what I have been hearing from my constituencies is that it would be more advantageous to have more of a compromise in language before it goes out to the faculty as a whole, as far as the information we've gotten back from our areas. But also, for example, last week, having some divisions having more representation than others, it was clear that the smaller divisions weren't as favorable up to that idea, and that maybe we should all have 2 reps. Or the 3-unit, I'm not sure who said it last time, but it was that there was, it would be hard for their area to have a 3-unit limit, that maybe a 1-unit, or maybe just a class, maybe it would be a 2-unit class, or however, everyone's areas are so very different. So I think that those concerns haven't really been addressed as much as the revisions have been good, and I know a lot of work in areas.
Someone who hasn't had a chance to speak yet might bring something new.
I'm in the Language Arts Division, and I don't agree with anything Sarah said. I want a chance to vote on this myself, and I'm embarrassed that our division is here arguing to continue their dominance of this body. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak and bring something new? Robert.
It has been said that using the at-large vote that we bring in diversity, but the truth is we don't. We've seen by the pie chart that it is dominated by one division. But more importantly, it said, oh, well, you can always vote them out. Let's get the reality of the vote. First of all, I have a very bloody nose, thanks to a certain UF campaign we ran against the incumbents on the Board of Trustees. And what I learned from that campaign, thank you, Pat, was that an incumbent is almost impossible to unseat unless you catch them in a very compromising position. Okay, so people, and also, since these at-large votes are coming from anywhere, the vote becomes fractured, so fine arts will never have enough votes to put solid support behind one candidate and get an at-large position. Whereas the language arts always has somebody they work with that they like, that they have just enough votes to give them a plurality and put them on the board again. So the realities of how voting takes place says that it will continue to be a loaded Senate with certain departments dominating. Now, what will happen if we're lumped in, fine arts is lumped in with language arts? There's 2 representatives, we've been told, and there's a very good chance those 2 representatives will come from language arts. And we will have no voice. But at the same time, when you look at the proportion,
let him speak.
If you look at the proportion of representation, it is hoped that if we do get a vote, and correct me if I'm wrong on how I heard that, I heard 2 language arts together, that I think in the long haul, we will come up with more representation.
Thank you, Robert.
The reality of elections has to be.
Thank you.
I would simply like to separate my public commentary from the one aspect of the argument from any discussion about the proportion, the representation. I was not speaking to any dominance of the language arts department. I was not talking about any numbers. I understand the value of spreading out the representation completely. I only object to that one small portion that I think is harmful to to the constitutional changes.
Thank you. Hold on.
Thank you. Mine is just a reminder, and I don't mean to upset anyone, and I'm not saying we are forgetful. I just would like to echo that we are here. I'm not a senator now, but I've been there before, you all know that. We came here to represent faculty, not to represent individual self. And it's all right to go back and check with faculty if what we're doing is okay. So I should see, I don't see any, we shouldn't have any fear to take this, whatever it is you're doing, back to faculty. Whichever division or department is vehemently against it, they have their chances to vote, to say we don't like it, and it's going to show in the vote. I don't think by suppressing information, let's make it more compromising, let's make it more whatever. You know, we shouldn't be seen. There's one thing to be doing what we think is right. We need to think about the perception. What does it look like we're doing out there? We don't want to be seen as just turning into a cult, if I may use that word. We need to open this up. We are in the age of information, and it's one thing you don't hoard. You don't hoard information. It's inefficient to hoard information. Information is efficient when you spread it and you share. So you don't have to reinvent the spinning wheel because you'll be wasting your time and energy. But if you don't share and open up, you might not know what is right under your nose. So let's take this out. Let faculty who sent us here be the ones to decide on it.
Thank you, Paula. Pat?
Nobody here is talking about keeping anything from the faculty. Let me reiterate the comments that I made in the beginning. What should have happened and has to happen is that the committee recommendation will come forward saying, we move the adoption of these items on it. At that point, it becomes a main motion, at which point the Senate looks at every one of those items and votes on each one of those items as to whether the Senate wants to approve of those items. If we talk about transparency and accountability, that's the transparent thing as opposed to, well, we're going to move something along that 4 members of the Senate dealt with. After all of those votes have been taken place, the Senate will then be sending these things out to the faculty, and any of those changes will have been made by a majority vote of the Senate, which is its right, its privilege, its responsibility. If there are other items that, as I indicated earlier, if there are items that do not get a majority vote of the Senate, they can still go forward with 1/3 of the members voting. So nobody's talking about sending forth anything. What we are talking about is sending forth a document to the faculty that the Senate, after its consideration, thinks is the best possible document. Then the faculty will vote to accept that or not accept it. They can then look at the minority recommendation as well and vote to accept that or not. But this body has to take control of the decision making and say, I vote yay, I vote nay, this is what I think is good, and not say, well, we're just passing on what other people who worked very hard and came to the consideration, but our opinions are not going to enter into it.
Thank you. Sheree?
A great many of the revisions I am quite comfortable with and make a lot of sense. My concern is once the Senate does vote and receives its 1/3 vote for this to move forward, that faculty who are not involved in the process will assume, well, if this whole document is what the Senate wants, then okay, that's what I'll vote on, without understanding that there are a few, just a very few, key sections that there was some strong, you guys, there are some strong feelings, pro and con, on some key items. I would hope to see that we might look at it as, here's 80% that we would like to send as one item to vote, and here are these 3 that are much more controversial. Maybe you would be fine with 80% of the document, but gosh, I can't accept these 3. If we could, is there a possibility of when it goes out to the general faculty to vote on, can it be presented as 80% and then here are these other 3 to vote on this evening? I'm just asking.
Thank you, Sheree. Brian?
Yes. As I have said several times, This will be, we're supposed to be creating this. The committee is working on it, but this is the Senate's document. And we've been taking some input into it to create it. I've also gone back to my division. They want it right now. They're upset at me that I went from 6 units to 3. There are other divisions on this campus that are rabid for more change than that. And I don't even know if my division's going to like the fact that I went from 6 to 3. So there's a lot of stuff that's going that is taking place here. And yeah, you guys can, as I told you in emails, the Senate is going to be responsible for the wording of this. The Senate is going to be responsible for the packaging of this, because the committee is not the one that's forcing this down anybody's throat. We've done the work and are bringing it to you in a process that we agreed to take our time on, and we've been taking our time on. Every single thing that you two just said we have been doing and are working towards. Everything. Nothing that you said is not being done or is not planned on being done as we've looked at this. It's really silly. We're not all going to agree on that if my division says 6 and your division might be okay with 1 or 0. Ultimately, that issue is going to be decided by the faculty. Because if you're talking about breaking some stuff down, I'll argue no. If you're talking about making certain amendments, I'll argue no. And you have to have 2/3 to amend. And those sorts of elements. So if you're going to do that, we'll have arguments about it. The process is going to be open as it should be. Anybody can make amendments. Anybody can do anything. But it doesn't mean that they're going to pass. This is the Senate's document. We're all working on this. Okay? So that is the process. We have asked for a little bit of wiggle room on that. And everybody agreed to that. That we had a little bit of wiggle room of how we're doing it. But we're certainly moving to that. We're not going to go, no guys, you can't do it. We're not going to pull some procedural issue that we know and no one else does. We're not going to pull that to stop something from taking place here. That's not the intention of any of this. And honestly, I'm just going to say this, and I don't want to offend, but that thinking represents the old Senate. It doesn't represent this new Senate. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this open and everything else. We are. This process has been. And I will not take anybody saying that it hasn't. Like we're trying to pull something over on somebody or something like that. That's what's kind of coming here. That hasn't been above board. It has been. We've been talking about this for a really long time, folks. We're going to continue to, and hopefully we're going to vote on this.
I'm not doing pros and cons. I'm going to give you the order that I'm going to call the next 3 people on. Tina, and then Jim, and then
Point of
Frida.
order, no one can be recognized while somebody else has their floor.
I thought you were done, Mr. Senator.
No, what I'm saying is
apologize.
you're giving us a list of 3 people.
Oh, yeah.
I really wanted to just say one thing, and that is, for the last 6 months, that's what we've been doing, is debating this in the Senate here. All we're asking is that we put it out there to constituency. I think we've heard everyone's pros and cons. I think we do, like Brian said. We have some senators who want to have no limits to teaching. We want some senators who want to have 3 limits, 6 limits. We've gone back to our constituency also. That's how we came up with this. We took everything you had into consideration. I mean, I think that's all we're asking is that this go out to the faculty who really then makes the choices. And you as senators, who if you have a disagreement with one of the areas, would then represent that to your constituency and take that forward. It's really the faculty's choice. We represent all faculty. Thank you.
Jim.
Thank you. My confusion right now is, we're being asked to vote on all of the amendments?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like that's what I think that's what people have, well, I'm having a problem with. What if I want to vote on them individually, like that one's good? I don't understand why it has to be the whole package. Why can't we vote on the various amendments? Because I think a lot of people agree with a lot of them, except for not that one. So then it feels like, well, we have to take that one because we're taking the whole package. So that's what I don't understand. Okay, so can I make a motion that we actually vote on each amendment separately? Instead of the whole Constitution? Yeah.
Would you have to, we need a motion to accept the recommendations of the the committee on it. That's the recommendation. Then we are looking at the entire document, and at that point, everything becomes amendable at that point.
If we accept the recommendation.
No, you're just, the motion on the floor would be to accept the recommendations.
The
of the committee.
recommendation.
Prior.
Then-
Keyword, the
Committee's recommendation.
And then you look at every one of those independent, that's what I was talking about earlier. That there is a motion on the floor, and Jim can make it, normally the committee would, but the committee hasn't made that motion. So Robert says anybody can make the motion.
Please let me clarify.
It's still me.
Yes, it is, Jim.
I realize that I'm a new guy, I'm getting side coaching, and I understand that. But I do agree with that. My feeling is that I would like to make a motion to accept the recommendations if that means that we are then going to be able to deal with each one separately.
It's automatic.
As opposed to a group.
Jim?
Yes.
Brian, though, is like pulling a Sheldon here, it's really bugging him.
No,
I was wondering if you would be entertained letting him make a comment before you make your motion.
Absolutely.
Because he may have some
Because I'm
clarification
still
and
trying
you
to
might be
understand the
interested. Brian, go ahead.
Okay, and we will tighten this up and go by the rules. But again, what we've been doing for the past semester has been having a little bit of a loose discussion about these things, okay? And I move to present the document as written to this body for its consideration to send to the faculty.
Second.
It is moved and seconded.
What does that mean?
Now, no, if I may. Now, Pat, we have done the thing, it is before it. He is now going to make a motion that says we're going to divide it, because that's what you wanted us to do.
Brian, hold on. Discussion on the motion.
I have a
Which
question.
Frida has a question.
I have a question I've been wanting to ask for a while. If, let's say, this whole constitution goes out to the faculty and it's voted upon, whatever, and things don't work out, can you send it back into Senate to revise things? Or how does that work? Because that's what I'm not understanding, because apparently everybody wants to vote on all these separate issues, and I don't understand, because a lot of them make complete sense to me. So I don't see why we need all, I know you all are laughing and I don't find it very funny, but I'm just saying. I find it very, like, the people who want more time just want more time to be comfortable with this instead of actually going forth and seeing this, because we have had various amount of time in here trying to vote for all of these. I've been here, we've ended meetings early. I've seen a number of times that some people wouldn't even, express their opinions during discussions. They would just keep moving forward. And I really don't understand the necessity to, like, just vote on these, not independently, but I don't see why you're gonna extend time when this issue is here and presented, and the faculty, from what I'm hearing, want to see it. So I don't see why you guys are gonna extend time on that. I'm just saying.
Thank you, Frida. Mark?
Just quickly, I think we need to move on these things sequentially. Put this on the floor for consideration, then Jim needs to move, Jim's motion to then vote on sections needs to move forward so that you can have a clear record of the appropriate level of consensus to move this constitution forward and have it on record. I mean, the reality is there isn't, unanimous consensus on each of the sections of the Constitution. That's just the reality. You can't change that. But we can move to resolve it by having a vote. So I think we should go forward with the two motions and proceed.
We have one motion. Mark, we have one motion on the floor.
I know, but right. My only other concern, Gary, is just time. That it's 5:20, and I'm worried that we've lost a couple of senators, and I think it's important that, the voting procedure should be as fortified as it can be, and it's getting late. I'm just worried about voting on it right now at this point in time, that's all. I mean, I'm just a concern, it's not an objection.
So we have a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded. Discussion on the motion. Kathy?
So by putting that forward, I mean, because I want to make sure I understand. Approving the motion then that says, okay, this is the document we're now going to look at.
Yeah.
And then we can indeed make, if we decide to make another motion that says, but we're not voting on this as the whole thing. That
we're voting to accept it for consideration.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's what we're doing.
Brian?
It actually has been before you, because we decided to do it informally, and we've been going back and forth with it. And now what is being done, and it really is a big issue now, so we're gonna formalize it. It's before you all. Okay? We've done the official thing, which actually we've been doing all along, but that's okay, it's now officially done. We can begin to talk about it, and now any other motions can be made. So, right now, right now what we're doing, because what the committee had wanted was to put forth an integrated package, because each thing matches the other. There's lots of moving parts in this, and it wanted to be together. The reason why it's being put to you together is that's the way the committee wanted it to do. Now, here's the thing. I don't need to go telling people this, but of course, anybody who's expert in parliamentary authority would know that you can make amendments. Would know that we're going to have a discussion about this. Would know that it's going to go through a vetting process. Obviously. That's what we're doing now.
So my motion.
No,
We have to vote on
Jim, we have to vote on the motion on the floor before we.
Could you restate your motion just so I can hear what that is?
Yeah,
Please, officially.
The motion that is on the floor is that we accept, the Senate motion is to accept the committee's revision of our Constitution and bylaws.
For consideration.
Yeah.
And then, if I may clarify the process. If we go to each of these individual ones, okay, and 1/3 of this Senate votes on each of those things, yeah, I'm sorry, Pat, that's the way it works. We're going to set it up as 18 or 19 different amendments. And for this to get out of here, it's 1/3. All constitutional amendments going to the faculty are 1/3.
Point of parliamentary procedure here.
Yes, Dr.
It is now treated as a main motion. Main motions are...
I understand the motion. It's been moved, and it's been seconded, that this document, with all of the changes, when the question is called for, the vote that will be cast is whether this document in its present form will be submitted to the plenary body for its approval by a 2/3 vote.
No. The motion is that the committee has gone and presented us with this document. Is the Senate going to accept it? That's the motion.
For
consideration. For consideration.
What?
That's the motion on the floor.
The motion is to accept the recommendations of the committee.
See no more discussion. All those in favor?
Wait, I don't think people understand that. I think you're jumping the gun there. You are moving to a vote on the motion to accept the recommendations.
Yeah.
It has to be open for discussion.
Well, that's, he just said, without that,
Well, and that's what I'm saying, that this now is the time when people need to start looking at every one of those items, what Jim was talking about. So it is now open, and personally, I would think the best thing would be go right from the beginning through it
It's a
all.
point of information, so if we do that, if we're now, before we vote on this, if we're looking at each one of them, are we going to vote on each one of them?
Yeah.
I don't think we need to really discuss these much more. We've discussed it.
Okay, let me interrupt, Jim.
Yeah.
I understand there's two things going on here. One is that we would accept the document as the recommendation to the Senate for consideration.
Yeah.
And then the idea was that a senator might say, let's look at each individual change and vote on those individually.
Yeah.
And maybe that would that might be passed or it might fail.
and that's not a motion.
Right, it's not a motion right now, but that was the idea.
Yes.
Now, Pat is suggesting that the Senate instead talk about these individual items during this discussion phase now before the vote. Hi, Kathy.
No, it is, really.
I think there's a problem with that, though, as a discussion, because then there's no vote. If it's just a discussion, then we're not voting on the items.
Point of order.
I think that, excuse me, just a second. But I think the issue was to at least vote so that if we want transparency and we want faculty to see how the Senate stood on these issues,
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll all go through. There's no, excuse me, sir. Personally, I think it'll go through because, with the third vote, everything's going to go through. But at least if the faculty could see that maybe this was 100%, everybody voted yay on this, there was some dissension on this one. At least then it gives faculty an opportunity in open transparency to see how it is that at least Senate felt about it.
Brian has a point of order.
That's what I'm looking for. So I think that's why a vote on each one is really beneficial for open transparency for faculty. I'm sorry, my voice is doing it. For open transparency for faculty, catch it, for faculty to really, to look at the issues. That's all.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay.
Brian?
It's what we're doing. We've brought this up to you, and now what we're saying, there's a motion on the floor right now to accept this. We're either gonna vote on that, or somebody needs to make somebody needs to make Jim's motion. Because right now, there's one motion that's out there. Am I right, Gary?
That is correct.
And the only motion that is out there currently is to talk about this stuff, and it's about it as being all one thing.
Right.
So if we call the vote now and we vote on that, and we get 1/3, it passes.
Jim is arguing to amend the motion by.
So now I can do it?
He's gotta be recognized. He has to be recognized.
Hi, Jim.
Hi. I'd like to amend the motion that we take the recommendations and vote on them each amendment individually.
Right.
Second.
And then you can vote on that.
Now it's the merits of doing that.
Okay,
that we
you
debate.
vote on.
No, it's the merits about doing that that we can debate.
We're not doing the individual items, we're doing the motion.
Yes.
Discussion on the motion to go and talk about each individual item and not the document as a whole. Ron?
I'm in favor of that, but I'd like to say that we've talked about this a lot, and it's already 5:30, and
Right.
and some of us do need to leave soon. I'd hate for us to
Right.
jump to a rash decision at the last minute when some of the people have left. So I'm in favor of the motion. I think we should take it on and start doing the stuff one at a time until time runs out.
Robert?
We've had new business on this calendar for 2 meetings at least that have never made it because of delay, point by point, dissection of minutia. If we cannot overcome this need to delay, then at least can we put the dang thing at the head of the agenda for next time and get it out of the way so this body can move on and do some business?
Every meeting, at the beginning of the meeting, I will offer the opportunity to restructure the agenda the way the Senate sees fit. Right now, Jolene and I are looking at an item down here about wanting to go to plenary. Can we get funding that we're wanting to get through tonight or not? So yeah, I hear you. Other discussion on on Jim's motion? Sheree?
With the same concern about things that we don't get to, I'm hoping that maybe we can speed along to the point of voting on this, and then we will know how we will be addressing this constitution at our next meeting.
Yes, I'm thinking.
So that we could then move to
Right.
important issues at the bottom in terms of the plenary and everything. But at least we will have had the vote to say which
This is
way
structure. The
we're
structure.
going to look at the constitution.
Thank you. Billy?
I want to call the previous question.
Second.
Okay, so we're gonna vote now on Jim's amendment, a motion.
You have to vote on his.
On Billy's.
Call the question.
So I'm saying, we're gonna,
It's a vote to call the question. and then-
oh, you're right. All those in favor to call the question, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Abstention. Okay, we're calling the vote now on Jim's amendment. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Those in favor of Jim's motion, raise your hand. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 12. Thank you. All the nays, raise your hand, just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jim's motion passes.
I just have a question.
His amendment.
Yes, Rita.
So the motion that just passed means that you all are gonna go individually through every single little point.
Every
and
change.
vote on every single little thing.
The amendment.
All right. So like, how many amendments are there?
We can do this quickly if we do.
Hold on. Sheree.
Just to explain that it doesn't need to be minute. We can, as we go through that process, make a motion for a block section.
That's good.
So there are variations of that. It does not mean line.
Every
by
letter.
I'm guessing there'll be a lot of stuff lumped together.
Well, I'm just asking because the way that's coming across, at least to me, it's more as if you're just being like, I don't know.
We see the importance of it. For the size of the vote, we see.
We only do it every 6 years.
I was asking just because I was curious. It kind of, like, to me, at least my personal opinion, I just feel like it's kind of you're trying to extend time by doing that. So,
Yes.
that's how I.
Obstruction is.
Order, please.
I'm gonna go and call in Kathy.
I would request that, in our next meeting, when we go over this, I think it would be really beneficial if we could just have it up on the overhead, and any changes, somebody can be in charge of doing the time, any changes can just be put right in immediately, we all see it, we go yay, nay, and move on. I think it's so much faster if we've got the visual up there. And I honestly, I would like to say, those of us, or I'll speak for myself, I did not vote to obstruct this because I really think there's much of great value here. I just want faculty to be able to see the whole issue, so that's all.
I love your idea. That's right. Christy, Billy, is that possible? Can we do that?
Sure.
It would go a lot faster if you didn't allow people who aren't recognized to speak for half an hour though.
There's gotta be order.
Okay.
I move to table the main motion.
We have a motion on the floor to table.
Table till today or set aside for a later time?
A later time.
Till next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay? There's no discussion on this. All those in favor of setting aside till the next meeting, say aye.
Wait, we can debate the merits of setting it aside.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay, discussion on setting aside.
I'd like to start so that the next meeting, if there is really so many things that are going to be really easy to pass, let's get to the nitty gritty and figure out what next week we have to focus on.
Point of parliamentary procedure, a motion to table is non-debatable.
Motion to set aside to a later
Motion
time.
was to table.
Motion to table, Pat, is to table for the same thing. Oftentimes, people misunderstand what tabling and setting aside for a later time are. That's one of the most common mischaracterizations that's done. I checked that out with the professionals, the experts, at the website.
Is there more discussion on setting aside? Sarah?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay, is there more discussion on setting aside? Seeing none, let's vote. All those in favor of setting aside till our next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
It passes.
It does?
It's a two-thirds vote? Was that a two-thirds vote?
All those in favor of setting aside, raise your hand. Oh, wait. Hold on.
Is there the wording that set aside and table are?
It's the motion to postpone to a certain time. It is a common misconception. When you actually say you're tabling something, it's like what we did when we went and we visited we were honoring somebody. We had a session, we set things aside, we went to go get new faculty. You're technically laying something on the table to pick it up.
Hold on. We're
But
taking
there's a
vote.
misconception which says tabling is to some other time, but if you really were using the proper instruction, you wouldn't.
We're gonna take the vote. You're gonna raise your hand for the vote, and the number that needs to pass will be 13, which is 2/3 of 20. Okay? Raise your hand if you want to set aside till next meeting. No, I think it's 2/3 of.
2/3 of a vote.
Of the vote?
2/3 of the vote.
Okay, so if you're a voting senator, raise your hand real quick for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
What about raising hand?
Raise your hand. No, he has to count how many votes are actually here.
I need to know how many votes are in the room. So if you're a voting senator, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Something we
7,
can all agree on.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
12.
Well, can I just do it myself?
I would have taken especially with my mathematics skills.
Wait, did we have 12 on the last one?
No, 13.
It was 11.
Because I was in
It was
12
11
and 5.
I didn't vote.
Okay,
It
here
was
we go.
11 and 5, wasn't it?
Well,
But you needed a majority?
Well, now we need two-thirds.
Yeah, now we need two-thirds,
Now-
but I think the last one we needed a
Oh.
majority, which is.
Okay, if you're in favor of setting aside this till next meeting, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It failed. Here we go. Oh, yes, ma'am?
Can I do a motion to adjourn the meeting? Sure.
I second
We'll have
it.
classes and I have to get. We need to vote on the.
Well, it's a,
When can I do that? Or is-
You can do
Um,
it.
you can do it anytime you're recognized.
Do that right now.
Sarah, you have a motion?
I'd like to motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Is there a second?
Jim?
Jim seconded?
Can I make a suggestion?
Hold on.
There's a motion on the floor.
We voted the motion on the floor and it failed.
yeah.
To set aside.
We weren't leaving, but now we're gonna try not to leave.
No, I just have to go home and the meeting's over at 5.
No, but we need
I would like to be able to
to
vote on that for my division that I'm representing.
Okay, hold on. Brian, am I making a mistake here? Is that what I'm hearing you say? Because I thought I stayed on track, but I
No, you.
I get
just-
confused easily.
No, it's funny. It's just funny to me.
We'll have class and I have to,
Okay?
sorry,
And that was never an issue in the previous Senate. We were here till 6:30 at times in the previous Senate, folks. Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Quiet down. Pat, you had a point of order?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, and I don't know if the chair recognized a second, but I know that there is the issue about funding the plenary session. It might be possible to table until after the discussion of the plenary session vote. Have that plenary session vote and then the motion to adjourn. That way you cover both of your angles, everybody kind of gets what they want, so you're setting aside, you're laying on the table the discussion of the motion, deal with that.
But of course, if this does do that, we are still actually, because the motion to postpone to a later time failed, the motion currently before us is to go through each one individually.
And that's what I'm saying, and the suggestion could be to lay that on the table until after the plenary session, and once the discussion of the plenary session is made, then you can.
Senators are not recognized,
If that's what people want.
I did recognize her. Okay. So there was a suggestion offered by a guest. What do you think of it, Sarah?
That sounds great.
Okay.
I thought your kids were waiting for you.
We can do this fast.
There's gonna be order, please.
We can do this fast, but ready? Is there a motion to table the adjournment to recognize the idea of funding Jolene and I to go to plenary?
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
That can't be done only because if you postpone to adjourn, the original motion comes back onto the floor.
That's a good point.
So it's not like we just immediately jump to the plenary because we want to.
Well, if plenary's not gonna be till April something, we still got another meeting.
You're not postponing the motion to adjourn your post, because I don't think those seconds are postponed. You're voting to lay on the table the original motion on the amendments.
And then what happens?
And then after you had the plenary discussion, that comes back on the floor, and
We will.
then the motion to adjourn is in force.
I think the motion to adjourn is sort of happening.
Okay. Seeing no other motions to table, we have a motion to adjourn and has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
That sounded like a majority. Abstentions?
Roll call.
Roll call by name or hand.
Dan?
Raise your hand if you're ready to adjourn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Raise your hand for if you do not want to adjourn, a nay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everyone, have yourself a fabulous 2 weeks. I look forward to seeing you at the strategic conversation.